I'm Ginger Curtis of Urbanology Designs. We are just outside of Austin, Texas at our modern Hacienda project. Come on in. We are in the entryway. I love this space because of all the natural light that trickles through these windows. So originally, the windows were not painted, and so this feature was a little bit lost. And by doing this charcoal paint that's so wonderful, it kind of pops. And then it really draws your attention to the fabulous courtyard that's outside. All this biophilic moments that are happening, and we really start to appreciate it as soon as we walk into the home. Over here, we've got a little unexpected moment with these brutalist chairs. So these are from Finland, and these are hand carved, and we picked up these treasures. They're several hundred years old, and it just adds a little personality to the space. Off the entry, we've got a piano lounge. I think that this space is so fun because we've added a lot of texture and a little bit of subtle color. And so this home is about great taste, great music, and having a little bit of fun, which was why we've got a pair of cowgirl boots sitting right here. It would not be complete. So we've got this really cool stone wall, and you're gonna see that the arches from the window are mimicked on the stone wall. And again, it just adds a feature to the home that keeps it feeling really interesting as you sort of peek into the lounge that's on the other side of that wall. We are in the dining room and the living room as well, and just behind me is the kitchen. So this is very much an open concept space, but really the intent was to create some very cozy seating areas that separated the open concept. And so we've got the little lounge off the bar, we've got a separate living room where it hosts the television, and then of course right here we are standing in the dining space. And I love that the table here is not perpendicular to the island, like that's what you would expect. But instead, we ran it this direction, and you can see it's really interacting with the living room and the fireplace, and that was all done very intentionally to create the dining as part of the living and not just an extension of the kitchen. Very, very unique. This table, by the way, is worth pointing out. Not only did it take 10 men to deliver it inside this space, but it's got this beautiful rough cut edge, and this is solid travertine, and it's really, really gorgeous. Also, one of my favorites, I'll say, happening in this space is the horsehair chandelier. We had this made just for this space, and it's so unique. When the light comes on, there's a soft glow. It's very, very unexpected. And of course, all of this is just adding so much fun texture back into the room. Now, the fireplace really does frame out everything that's happening in this living room. And I'll have to say, I think of all the things that we've done, this might be one of my favorites. We call it the James Bond fireplace. It's got this incredible plaster treatment. And the plaster is just adding a very subtle movement. It took try after try, sample after sample to really get the movement right because we didn't want it to feel too busy and chaotic. We wanted it to be soft and add just a little textural moment back into the space because then we've got all of this stacked stonework happening in this exposed mortar right here. And this is adding loads of texture. We butt that against this gorgeous purple aubergine tile. You're gonna see a little bit of purple elsewhere in this home. And it's a zielige, and you can see the grout, and it feels tumbled. All these tiles are handmade and sort of just rough edges that tells you that it's got this beautifully imperfect look to it so that it feels casual, but still very, very elevated. And then, of course, we are gonna leave no stone unturned, including the beautiful built-in, where the walls that are flanked in the plaster as well, and then we've got the oak cabinetry. We've got a really beautiful scrapbook and memorabilia. Of course, all these wonderful nods to modern hacienda. Again, just always paying tribute to Texas, where we're at, and this wonderful state that it is. I love this feature. These are just hand-carved handles. So rather than doing a traditional brass or black knob, we've done this very chunky carved handle right here, and it just adds just a lot of playfulness and fun rather than doing something basic. Why not? We are in the kitchen just off the living and dining room. And this space is a little different because it's playful. And we've pulled some of that really amazing purple color that's happening on the fireplace over into the cabinet color. It's bittersweet, but it's got this warm, deep, dark, moody aubergine color. And it just plays so beautifully with our green tile. And it just casts just a moment in this kitchen where you want to be, you want to entertain, you want to cook. And that's exactly what the homeowners do. We've got a gorgeous range and then a very rustic Texas steel vent hood. It adds a ton of texture into the space. We did something really amazing with the scale of these pendants, and you can tell the texture here adds a lot of value to the space, but it's also playful again because of almost this scallop detail that's happening at the top of the fixture. And so I love this kitchen because it's so unique. I feel like so many people wouldn't think to pair some of these colors and materials in a space like this, but as you can see, it works really, really well. At the end of the kitchen is the refrigerator and some cabinet storage. Just behind this wall is the laundry, guest bathroom, and then a staircase that leads to the bedrooms. This kitchen really is a chef's dream because we've got so much counter space. This is the opposite end of the kitchen here, and you can see we've got a prep sink. Not only that, the massive countertop space, but the views of the courtyard. I don't know that I would want to leave this area for very long. It's so pretty. And then baking. Our client loves to bake, and so she can roll out dough over here, and she doesn't have to fuss with the main island. This really is a separate space. And then making morning coffee. This is also a space where that happens. And then you grab your cup of joe, and then you head into the morning room, which is right behind me, just behind the kitchen. And this space is so incredible because, again, the light just floods in the morning sun, and you've got multiple options for lounging and seating. You could curl up with a book in one of these chairs, and you can enjoy the beautiful courtyard views, or hop over to the little built-in lounge. And you can see on this beauty, we've got this fringe, leather fringe detail. This was all custom made. And just one more, element to add some texture back into the room. And so our goal was to create little loungy areas within a single space where you can enjoy your coffee, read a book, take a phone call, whatever this space needs to serve you, it's got the ability to do that. And then it ends with this little bistro table. This was also custom made. And if you want to have some breakfast with your coffee and you want to sit here and lounge, you can do that with ease. Over here, I would say this wall behind me is so spectacular because it's sort of this sandy desert color, which ties in with the modern Hacienda feel that we're going for. And it's concaved. And so the reason why that's really special is when the light comes in, it creates and casts these really beautiful shadows. And then lastly, these velvet curtains, mood, luxe, warmth, year round, this room is sort of like hugging you. All right, we're walking just past the dining area again, and we are not done with the living spaces in this home. We still have 2 more areas that you have not seen that are lounges. So let's go take a look at that. The first one is this little lounge area that welcomes you right when you come into the space off the entry. And it is not only beautiful, but it's actually incredibly comfortable. This is another great spot to just chill at the end of the day, read a book. But when you want something more elevated, it's right off of the bar for entertaining. And this is a great space to interact with whoever is sitting at the bar, eating snacks, really just enjoying themselves. Each of these spaces were separated very intentionally with rugs. In the dining room, we've got one that goes the direction of the table. As we move into this lounge space of the bar, we've got this really great circular rug, and you'll notice it's just a lot about movement and texture on the rug, less about color, because we really wanted this chase to sort of like steal the show as far as color in this space. This chase is not only for lounging and ultra comfortable, but it also has another purpose. It separates sort of the lounge off the bar into the living space where we're at right here. This is where you're going to watch TV, pop popcorn, hang out, entertain friends. All of the above can happen in this space. Right behind me, we have this beautiful console, okay? It's probably the prettiest TV console I've ever seen in my life. I love it. We had it all custom made, and it's almost floating, except right here at the end, we've got this really interesting sort of unexpected millwork detail for the leg, and it's asymmetrical. So we don't have a leg on the other end, literally just one here. And that asymmetry is creating a lot of interest. Most of it's happening on the subconscious. You're not always picking up immediately what it is that you're seeing, but that's also also intentional. And then the Zia tile right here is also very strategic because we wanted to create a lot of interest with this wall because the color is subdued. It kind of reminds me of what's happening in the morning room, a little bit of a sand, a little bit of a dune color, but we've taken the tile and we've run it up and down the wall vertically, overlapping the base tile. And this allows for shadows to be cast. It creates dimension in this space. So why put your television on a boring plain wall? How about, overlap it on a beautiful tiled wall like this? And then as we move towards the window, we've got a really lovely lounge chair, and I've got the velvet curtains. So these are meant to be very loungy. They move around. So if you're going to cast your eyes towards the television and you're going to be watching the Dallas Cowboys or the Longhorns, then you can do that with ease. But if you're going to be talking to your guests who are at the lounge area in the bar or even the dining or living room, now this whole room is able to interact with everything else that's happening. And that's really wonderful. The home is meant to not only be stunningly gorgeous, but it's meant to be practical. You need to be able to sit in this space and just live in it. We are at the bar, maybe one of the most spectacular places in the home. I feel like I've just been transported to somewhere all the way across the country. I feel like this space fits the home so well, but at the same time, it's very unexpected and ultra luxurious. So just past the bar stool here, I'm gonna pull this out, and we've got this hand-carved walnut detail over rattan. So it's adding tremendous texture, but it's also a subtle element. Again, it's not really until you pull the chair back that you say, what's happening right here? And it's so interesting, so lovely. As we enter the bar, one of the first things that you're going to see is this beautiful marble stone. It's this dark green. It plays so beautifully with the brass that's happening on this backsplash. We took the brass all the way up the entire wall, and again, the marble repeats itself, and you can see these amazing shelves. And then as you keep going, your eye is drawn almost to the ceiling by this millwork feature that really frames out this incredible shape that feels just spectacular in such a small space. You don't expect it. And the dark plaster walls are casting all this really fun movement. It's adding so much texture to the space. And then the bar itself has just this fantastical storage. We did something a little interesting with the cutouts. There's no actual door. It's meant to just reach, grab, and pour yourself a drink. The millwork moment that's happening on the cabinetry over here, we had these all handmade so that we could add a really interesting pattern that wasn't expected, something that you're not just going to see at a store, rather than doing a normal hardware that you would see. And again, we've got our marble over here, our beautiful brass chandeliers, our brass pendants, and the pendant light on the wall, and how that brass really ties in with the faucet. And then finally, this really playful artwork by a really, really talented artist, and it just adds that sort of cheeky, whimsy playfulness in a really sophisticated space. One of my favorite things about this project was really getting to know the homeowners and developing a friendship and a relationship of trust. And with that, they let us go through some of their treasures and find moments that were deeply special to them that they didn't understand how to maybe translate those things into the home. But immediately, when we started exploring, we realized that there were moments that we could create in the home using their special treasures. And one of those was we found a pile of old scrapbooks, and you can see we created this gorgeous shelf for a display, and the scrapbooks ended up going here. I even found an old postcard of a cowboy on a bucking bronco with a note on the back, and it was so special to our client. She's enclosed it to keep it safe and protected. And then flipping through more things, I found on top of a book, just an old recipe from the Tarzan scrapbook, and just little beautiful moments that are treasures to our clients. But again, it's like, how do you incorporate these things in a way that tells the story of who you are and the story of your home? Behind me is this rope, and it was just sitting in the corner somewhere, and I thought, okay, we've got this gorgeous cowboy artwork, but what if we just layered this rope right across the top to create a moment? And we did that, and it was really unfussy, but it belonged to them. And so when they came in and saw but it wasn't just joyful, it meant something more. And I think that's what's possible in our homes, is to create a lot of meaning. In fact, something that we are really passionate about is an emerging field called neuroaesthetics. And really all that is, it's the impact that our environments have on how we live and feel every single day. And this home is a perfect representation of a home that just deeply impacts you. And so when Allison comes here in the morning, she sits down to read a book. The first time she ever saw this placed here, she realized that this was a book from her home and a feather that we had found in what we call her treasure room, where she was storing things that were personal and meaningful to her, but she didn't know where to put them or how to display them. And in fact, when I sit here and I see this and I know that it's hers, it makes me happy because there's a memory tied to this. Great design isn't 15, 20 huge decisions we crush. It's hundreds of details, but in those details, it's understanding the people that are going to live and reside in this home. How do we reflect the best of who they are? How do we use the principles of neuroaesthetics to affect how they live, how they feel, all of these really profound things that we're now understanding to be true through the fields of neuroscience. I know it sounds crazy, it sounds geeky, but it is real. And so many of you have resonated with walking into a space and you just felt happy and you couldn't explain it. Now we're starting to understand why with the research in the science field and Johns Hopkins and the Mayo Clinic. And we're compiling all this incredible information to realize that great design is not sugar on the tongue. In fact, it deeply impacts how you live and your well-being every single day. We're back at the entryway. Just behind me is a hallway that leads to the primary suite, and then over here is a study. Those are in progress. Before we head to the courtyard though, I'd love to show you this moment that's happening on this back wall. It's a really cool vintage leather saddlebag, and it was something that my client had. And it was the first thing when I walked into her house, I saw it resting against the wall, and I thought, what is that? What is happening with this beautiful thing? I didn't even know what it was. And then come to find out, it's a saddlebag, and it is just special. And I knew that she enjoyed it as well because she brought it into her home, and we found a really meaningful place to put it. Let's transition to the outside and take a look at the courtyard. We are in the courtyard. I love this space so much. Not only is it beautiful outside, but the views from the interior are lovely. Again, soaking up all that fantastic biophilic design. Let's take a look. On the patio, we have multiple lounge areas, including a dining area right behind me. Then we've got the pool cabana for entertaining and hosting. I love the outdoor space, especially the pool cabana, because from inside, you can see the amazing clay roof. And it's got that Spanish feel. It ties with what's happening on the interior. And of course, this is just built for entertaining. And as we walk over to the pool side, we've got these really fun black umbrellas. There's so much green and terracotta out here. The pop of black feels really nice. It feels elevated. The umbrellas are fun because it adds some contrast with all the beautiful terracotta back here and the green. The black really kind of makes a fun statement. And then over at the pool, I'm going to show you this unique wall feature. We've got these dividers, and that's something that you don't see every day. It's got the green, the terracotta, speaking to everything and all the colorways that we've already seen. And again, that narrative from the outside all the way into the interiors is very consistent with the colors and the inspiration of what's inspiring us, what we love. You can kind of all see it crescendo and come together as we end in the beautiful courtyard space. Thank you everyone for visiting our modern Hacienda project. I had so much fun taking you behind the scenes and talking about some of the really special details that make this house a home. I am Ginger Curtis with Urbanology Designs. If you want to follow along or learn more, please visit the information below or our Instagram, Urbanology Designs. Guys, that's a wrap. I would love to hang out longer, but I'm going to go take a dip in the pool. Bye, Luxury Home Show. See you next time.